Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. It's wonderful to see such a fantastic turnout with students from so many diverse fields, as we could see when you signed up. We're thrilled you've taken this opportunity to engage directly with the European Commissioner Andrius Kubilius. He's European Commissioner for Defense and Space. And Commissioner, a special thank you to you for prioritizing this discussion. We know your schedule is demanding and your presence here is greatly appreciated. Yeah, just come up. That's so fine. We structured today's session in two parts. For the first 20 minutes, you will have the opportunity to ask the Commissioner questions on the theme of Europe's strategic autonomy, innovation, and youth in space and defense. That sounds right?
Good, okay.
After that, I will invite the Danish Minister for Higher Education and Science, Christina Egelund, and ESA astronaut Andreas Mogensen to join us on stage. And the second part of the session will broaden the discussion to their perspective on exploration, research, and the commercialization of space. Just a quick practical note: when you're ready to, you will be answering or asking the questions to the Commissioner and the other panel participants. And when you're ready to ask a question, just raise your hand, then I'll point you out, and then we should have somebody with a microphone here to bring it to you. And then please stand up so everybody can see who is asking the question. Yes. Yeah, this will ensure everybody can hear you, the question clearly, and I encourage you all to take this advantage of this unique opportunity and actively engage with our guests. Before starting, we have a short video from the European Commission.
Should I?
You can just sit.
Yeah, I'm not here. It's good without...
Intended for EOGS should allow using optical and radar imaging modes for all weather, day and night monitoring. The data are to be made available to governmental users securely via advanced transmission technologies, allowing for faster imagery acquisition. A dedicated ground hub is foreseen to allow seamless and reliable data provision to end users when time is of the essence.
It would probably have been better with sound all the way, but I think we're good to go. Before we start, then I will ask you, why did you as a Commissioner want to come here and spend some of your precious time discussing...
Should we sit down? Or
yeah,
okay, good.
Sit down. Yeah, why you think it's important to come and discuss with the youth?
Because I was invited. So.
Oh.
But in general, really, I am very happy, and a pleasure to meet. And definitely, I was in my biography. I graduated physics many years ago, and then I spent 10 years as a researcher in Vilnius University. So first of all, science is very close to my heart, to my mindset, and that's why really I enjoy always to speak with the students, especially. I don't know what you are studying, but I guess that quite a lot of you, are with some kind of technical engineering, whatever, I can tell you that physics is the best science. So, since I studied physics and I was working in physics. So this is one thing. Now, second, definitely, when we are talking about what we need to do now, it's very important for us to understand what's coming. From one side, what's coming like challenges and threats. From another side, what's coming like, very, very interesting perspective. So when we are talking about challenges and threats, of course, we are talking mostly about security and defense. And here again, it's absolutely clear, and you know very well that now defense is very much dependent on space. Do we have space capabilities which are needed for defense? What we need to do in order not to stay behind our adversaries or even our friends in development of those capabilities. Everybody knows Starlink. If you will ask Ukrainians about how important is Starlink, you will hear a lot about that. And we do not have European Starlink. We are developing now Iris Square, secure satellite communication, which will be, as experts are saying, will be better than Starlink. That's most important. Then, of course, when we are talking about defense, it's very important also to have good capabilities of precise intelligence data from space. Again, that is what is very much needed on the front line, and what new systems, so-called ISI, capabilities are very crucial, and we do not have for time being. Some countries have, bigger countries like Germany, France, perhaps they have, but all other European Union member states do not have, and that is why it's better to develop our own system, which would provide us with highest technological level of those capabilities, and we're able to do that because one of the leading companies are also working in Europe, and we can use their advantages, their knowledge, how to build such systems in a very effective way, in order to have really very precise picture of the same spot. For example, each half an hour, because now all our capabilities are that we can have the same picture of the spot once a day.
Yeah.
So that is what is very much needed. And Denmark is really very well advanced in technologies. Yesterday we visited not directly space company, but very technological advanced company, Weibel.
Yeah.
It's really, I was struggling with my physics knowledge to understand
the radar systems.
Radar systems, how they operate, and what they are doing, and that's really very important. Now, on another side, as I said, we need to look also into, especially when we're talking about space, as something which has what I would call a revolutionary future. And I think that we are now witnessing some kind of, I don't know which stage of revolution, but nevertheless, I call it revolution. Because, first of all, if you look into the numbers of satellites, it's exponentially growing. If we're looking into what are new capabilities, what I was talking about, defense, again, it's huge. And definitely, when we're asking ourselves, or we need to ask ourselves, a very simple question, where space will be, let's say, in 10 or 20 years, we can, just predict or guess that really we shall have very intensive lunar exploration, we shall have in space operation, maybe we shall have even manufacturing in space, and that is what is coming. And for us, the issue and challenge is how not to stay behind, and that is, demand sometimes very, very practical decisions or solutions now, because, first of all, in order to be active in space, you need to have what I would call very simply good transportation system. It means launching system.
Yeah.
Because if not, then you will see from the Earth how developments are going on in space, but which you will not be able to participate in that. So there are a lot of things which now we need to decide. We need to start to invest, and that is what we're trying to do, and that is what will demand a lot of scientific knowledge, a lot of skills, and that is what I'm happy to see all of you.
Yeah. And is anybody in the crowd burning in with a question from the start, or should we start up with Christian down there? There's coming a microphone.
I was wondering, because we in AI, we were very quick to regulate with the AI Act in Europe. Now and since then we've had startups and corporates say that it has been hindering them in competing internationally. How are we working on learning from that when we're now one of the very early to also make the Space Act?
Well, we are very good, first of all, to create very bureaucratic regulations and then to go for simplification. That's what we are doing now. One of the priorities in Commission job is simplification omnibuses. But that's some kind of joke. But on space, really, what we need to understand and why we need this Space Act, it's exactly opposite. It's how to diminish bureaucracy, because now we have, I don't know the last numbers, but it looks like that we have 13 or 14 different Space Acts made by different EU member states. So if you will want to establish your space business, space company, and to be active and to use the whole European market for your development, you will need to go through 13 or 14 different regulations, asking everywhere license or permit or something like that. So what we want to do is really to create a single regulation of the market. Yes, it demands some kind of we can call bureaucratic overview, bureaucratic licensing procedures. We're trying to make them very simple. But if you will follow those rules, so you will be able to register yourself, for example, in Denmark, and you will be registered all over Europe. So that is the purpose. That is the purpose of why we want this Space Act to be established. And second is really what I'm always repeating, that we need to understand what does it mean, this space revolution. For me, it reminds what was happening at the beginning of 20th century, which we can call, a revolution in automobiles and revolution in airplanes. At the very beginning, when there were several, cars and several automobiles in the country, of course, you had no need to have any kind of rules of the road. When the roads became overcrowded, the same in air traffic, you needed to introduce very clear rules. Not to have such situations that you are in one country you are traveling left side or whatever, we are traveling right side. Yeah. Or in another country, you are traveling another side. So okay, Great Britain is a special case as always, but but that's what we need to have now in space. We need to have also rules of the road. Because the space is becoming very much overcrowded, or it will become overcrowded. So those are basically, why we need to have this act. And in my view, it will make our life easier. Not, what some critics are saying. Well, it will create bureaucratic obstacles and so on and so on. Not at all. Sometimes you need to have rules in order to have life more simple.
I actually also got a question about this beforehand, so it's actually something that people really are interested in knowing something about, if this will impact our ability to innovate all the rules set up. Did I see a hand over there, probably? If we can pass it over.
Thank you very much for your time, Commissioner. Do you envision incentives for startups who want to work with EU companies instead of US ones?
Yes, we have all those, how to say, we have the vision that clearly we need to invest very much and to allow what we can call new space industry to be very, very able to create competition to big primes, established primes. And that is what is in our agenda. We are creating, different instruments like Casino Fund for space industry, exactly for startups, for researchers with Horizon, which is very active also in space. But definitely we need to recognize that what we lack in Europe, we lack this, what I would call culture of risk. We are very much, afraid of risk. And without risk, really, innovation is becoming very difficult. And that is what we need to learn from Americans, from maybe from other countries, And we need to have, special instruments, risk capital instruments, much more developed in Europe. And really we need to look, and now what is happening, at least what we are learning from big reports published last year by Draghi and, for example, by Letta, also Enrico Letta, former Prime Minister of Italy, a very well-known professor of economics, who published a special report on single market in Europe. And his message was very simple. We are not using 33 trillion euros, which are in our private, savings. We are, those are untapped resources for European industries to be developed. Those, pension funds and savings, they are used by funds, to invest into American funds. And American funds are not coming back to Europe, buying our startups, and they are becoming American startups. So we are in a quite, I would say, strange situation. So that is why one of the priorities for Commission is to develop this saving and investment union, to create possibilities for those money to be much more effectively used on European markets and supporting our startups, and especially in those areas like space and defense.
Yeah. A question over here, if we can get the mic up front. There is one coming.
As somebody who's just started a bachelor, should I focus more on a specific area if I want to get into aerospace, or should I focus more broadly in my studies?
If I would know, I would answer, Well, in general, what is my understanding is that really life is changing so rapidly that you need to be ready for big changes going on, all the time. And you need to be ready, to find yourself in developing new skills and so on and so on. I cannot tell you that if you will, now finish university, that it will be enough for you to have the knowledge for all your life. But I don't know what you are studying, but I remember very well, and I was always very happy about some kind of funny description of the guys who are involved into physics, that physicists are very curious people who like to serve their curiosity using governmental money. So stay curious all the time, Maybe with governmental money or private money, nevertheless, but stay curious. Try to always to ask yourself why something is happening.
We have a question, the one in the red. And I can say, just before you answer the question, you've already done the first good thing. Sign up in one of the student organizations, whether it's EU SAT, DISCO, or EU Robotics. That's a very good way of specializing and getting good skills.
Hello, good day. As from the perspective that we are seeing that the technologies of space, AI, and robotics are advancing so much, do you believe that we'll reach a point for us as humans and as citizens, we should think to exchange our freedom for safety? Because with space technology like satellites, they could, for example, see everything and manage to control us in a way of surveillance, more or less. Not now, but perhaps in the future.
Well, that's, quite a natural reaction of human civilization to new developments. If you will look into the history, you can see a lot of similar reactions, that people were afraid of new technological developments. What will happen if some, that thing or another thing will start to appear? That was in the industry, that was in other areas. I would not be so much afraid. Well, of course, things will change and will be different. And as, again, Some experts are saying in those who are working in so-called future studies, I mean, trying to predict what will be, what will happen. So their advice is that if you want to try to predict, try to look into the future not less than 30 years away from now. Why? Because what history is showing that in 30 years' time, technologies will be totally different what you are using now. So you need to simply, if you want to predict the future, you need to find in some way some kind of possibility in your mindset to cut, what you see now, and to try to imagine what can come, totally maybe, different from what you have now. And that is how things were developing all the time. So should we be afraid of such kind of development? My answer is no. Yes, we shall need to adapt. We shall need maybe to have, some new regulation. We like regulation, but let's not be afraid of those things which technologically will come. And I'm always wondering, when I became grandfather. Now my granddaughter, the oldest one, is 16 years old. When she was born, I started to ask myself a very simple question. She was born in 2009. I started to ask myself a very simple question. I said, okay, so if she will be healthy, luckily she is healthy now, and if medical services will continue to be, good and effective, so she can see, the end of the century and the beginning of next century, being 91 years old or whatever. And my question to myself was, so what she will see? And again, I couldn't answer myself, but that's my curiosity.
Yeah.
For me, it was interesting to look. To try to imagine what she will see when the centuries will be changing. And definitely, we can now recognize that things will be very much different. What will not be different that still human beings will live on less. Everything else, technologies can be very much different.
Yes. Thanks for that answer. I would now like to invite the Minister of Higher Education, Christina Egelund, to the stage also, and astronaut Andreas Mogensen. And then we will give them a round of applause.
Okay. Minister, good to see you again. Oh, yeah, good to see you. Good to see you.
Good. With their arrival, we will now shift our focus to the next theme, perspective on exploration, research, and the commercialization of space. So, if anybody is dying for a question out of the gate, it's now. Otherwise, I have one. While Europe is consolidating its critical infrastructure in Earth orbit, other global actors are setting ambitious goals for Moon and Mars. For astronaut Andrius Mogensen, what is the scientific and inspirational value of a distinctly European human exploration program? And maybe the others can chime in afterwards in what is the political and economic vision that would justify such a monumental long-term investment and unite Europe behind a shared destiny in space?
Human spaceflight has the potential to inspire almost more than anything else. And if I were to look into the future, and a future where the US was sending American astronauts to the moon, and China was sending Chinese astronauts to the moon, and India was sending Indian astronauts first to their Indian space station, and then perhaps in the future onwards to the moon. My question would be, where is Europe? And my answer is, we have to be there as well, because otherwise we're going to lose the younger generation, right? They will look out into the world and they will see other countries setting bold goals, having big ambitions, and the best and the brightest will go where they're inspired to be. We live in a global, interconnected world where luckily people can travel, people can go to university in different countries, and they can get careers in different countries. And if we want to maintain the youth, the best and the brightest of European youth in Europe, we have to inspire them. We have to show that we in Europe are also capable of setting big goals and dreaming big.
And do we have a vision politically to keep for human space flights when the ISS is closing? Will we then have a new space station, or will it just be no?
It depends on Denmark. And really, you have the best minister and best astronaut, you know.
And we have the best commissioner.
And Denmark now is in the presidency, very important job, really. I admire what you are doing. But in general, really, I would say, I agree absolutely, in our life, dreaming and making dreams, a reality is something what is moving us, forward. Sometimes in Europe we are losing this capacity, we are very much, bureaucratic. We want to regulate even dreams, that's, not always is very successful. But I would say, it's, for me, everything what is happening in space reminds very much, you can see analogy with, with 19th century frontier developments in the United States. At first, really romantic trips, sometimes some small fights, but then, after that, it comes exploration and development, economical and industrial from the development of those, new frontier regions. The same is in space. Space is something like new frontier for human civilization. It's, of course, it brings even, in some way, you don't know where that frontier is ending, In the United States, at least, they knew that California is, the boundary of frontier regions. So, but that is what in my view is coming. And again, what I never thought about what my granddaughter will see, in space at the end of the century, but we can imagine that things will be very different. And those frontier, regions close to us or close to Moon, will become much more part of our life, of our economical systems, whatever. We can just guess.
Well, I get that question a lot. I will not repeat what the two brilliant gentlemen have already said, but many people ask me, why do we invest so much money in space activities or space research? Don't we have more pressing, problems to solve here on Earth? And I think what everyone, I'm sure you understand it, and I know that you two do, but I think what we need the world to understand and Europeans to understand is that activities in space is actually also about improving life on Earth. And as I see it, space activities is not in the category of an exotic luxury. It is a necessity if we want to solve some of the most pressing problems here on Earth.
Yeah. I saw we had a question down here.
So actually I have two questions. I hope that's okay. So the first one is about legitimacy and the role of the EU. So how does the Commission build legitimacy around programs such as like the IRIS Squared, which involve both defense and also a fear of surveillance aspect? And then the second one is in industry and innovation. So how can the EU ensure that smaller companies have a real opportunity to contribute to, for example, also IRIS Square, and won't be overshadowed by Europe's major industrial players?
But what was the first, you asked about IRIS Square and...
Yes, so generally, what does the Commissioner, how does the Commissioner actually plan to maybe build legitimacy around such programs? It was just an example, which also involves defense and maybe also civilian fear of surveillance.
I mean, Iris Square, of course, is a very important program which we are now developing, and it's implementation stage. We hope that before the end of this decade we shall have operational Iris Square, and it's for secure satellite communication. As I said, we expect, at least some experts are saying, that it will be better than Starlink. It will use quantum technologies also, and things like that. In addition to that, I can say that quite soon we're expecting that we shall be able to launch so-called GovSatcom system, which will integrate existing national resources of the same sort into some kind of precursor network of Iris Square type. So that is what we are going to do. Now, on small and medium-sized business, in different programs we are regulating that contractors, big contractors who are developing those projects should involve up to 30% of their contracts. They should involve small and medium-sized business, and that is what we shall continue. But as I said before, really there is a need of much broader different, financial instruments and maybe, regulatory instruments, how to create this really very, very dynamic ecosystem in Europe, both in defense and in space. A lot of things we can learn now, for example, from Ukrainian defense industry, where the war, pushed them to be very innovative, and we can just, try to ask them to help us, to bring that mentality and that approach into innovations where they were very successful.
Can I ask something to the question about legitimacy? It's a very relevant question, but the point is, in politics we always consider what are the alternatives. So we have one solution here is, for example, building Iris Square together in Europe. The alternative to doing that is that we continue to depend on Starlink, and that, in my opinion, is not a good place for Europe to be in. That we depend, that we cooperate with other countries, yes. That we also have partnerships, that Danish or European companies can have partnerships with other companies, but that we depend as a continent on one big, American-led private company, I think is a very unfortunate place for Europe to be in. So building infrastructure together as a unified continent, working on infrastructure projects together, I think has got all to do with our independence from not only other continents and other countries, but also from foreign companies. And I think that's extremely important, and of course in the geopolitical situation in which the world is, but also from the point of view that we want to, for example, build our own access to space, or being able to set out our own satellites from Europe, based on European values, on European terms, on European prices, etc., etc. So I think it's got all to do also with taking our strategic autonomy in Europe. And that, in my opinion, is very legitimate, and that is, of course, a political question in which everyone is free to disagree.
Yeah, I think we have a question down here.
Yes, thank you. I have a question about space, and that's probably more to Andreas.
Andreas is the only one who's actually been there.
Yes. So as a data science and machine learning student in Aalborg, I'm curious about how missing data in space affects you, and more specifically how space agencies handle missing or uncertain data on space debris. And just following on that, probably you can comment on advancement of AI and security. You've been an astronaut while you've experienced also extreme advancement in the AI technology. So how could you feel that on safety in orbit?
I don't know if I can answer all those questions in depth, but I can certainly try. We often imagine that we have a pretty good idea of what's going on, but then every once in a while we get surprised. And I think it was only a week or two ago that a small asteroid passed very close by Earth, I mean within a few hundred kilometers. We've also recently been surprised by the third interstellar object to pass through our solar system, and I know there's been a little bit of press about an American university professor saying it's 40% chance being alien. I don't think it's quite that high, but still, I mean, it's there are still a lot of unknowns, even in the part of the solar system close to us, and certainly space debris is a very pressing concern where we have limited amount of data, and a lot of what we work on is probabilities. So yes, there are definitely opportunities to become smarter and more aware of what is happening in space around us.
In the middle here, if you can get the microphone in there.
So you talked about this asteroid that surprised us. So I was kind of wondering, what are we in the European Union doing to actually observe these asteroids? Because I know it's usually been a job for JPL in the US, but there is of course a risk that it will hit Europe. So what does the ESA do there?
I mean, we have a program of space safety and space surveillance, where we try to, together with international partners, map out what is in the near solar system, and that could pose a danger to us. But of course, it's one of those cases where you don't know actually how much is out there until you see it. I mean, we can try to estimate what percentage of all the asteroids we know about, but there could be potentially many more that we simply haven't discovered yet.
But that's very important part of our agenda looking into the future. Because one thing is natural, challenges to our space systems which can come, but also we need to see that there can be artificial challenges. And that is why always when we are talking about defense and space, I'm using double formula. That from one side we need to look space for defense issues, how space can serve our defense needs, but also we need to look into defense of space, how we can defend our space systems, because we can see from our adversaries that they are showing some kind of capabilities to attack or to destroy space systems. And everybody, we remember that just before Russians invaded Ukraine, they have shown how they were able to attack their own satellite. So that's things which are coming, and we need to be ready. And again, here is surveillance. What we need to develop, we need to develop our our capabilities of what we call in space operations, and other things, and also launching, maybe launching of micro launching could be also here very important, because you need to react very very quickly, very rapidly. If you see the situation is becoming dangerous, so.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. I want to extend a sincere thanks to all of you for participating in this questionnaire. I hope the session has been informative for you and thought-provoking maybe. Please join me and the group for a group photo, because we'll have a photograph up here taking a selfie down. Yeah, so we should probably stand up. And then meanwhile we're setting up, you should give all of these a big applause for showing up today. I was told there was coming a photograph up here, or from down there, or...